Konnichiwa, watashi no yojin. I'm still learning, of course, but welcome, my friends, to another episode of the Top 10 Best Films made by some of the greatest directors in all of cinema. I am starting from 10 and then slicing and dicing my way up to number 1. And always remember, my samurai friends, I have seen every film that is attainable, because if I can't attain it, you can't attain it. What's the point, right? That being said, the list here come from truthful and honorable accuracy. Now, you all must know I love honoring cultural heritage months, and this month is, of course, Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. I could just imagine how the board debated on where AAPI month should go, and one said, "It's gonna be May." Sorry, I couldn't help myself. But yes, within the vast range of amazing artists of Asian American and Pacific Islander heritage, my friends, I just had to honor one of the absolute greatest, the godlike filmmaker and storyteller that continues to inspire generations of artists to this very day. He is often known as, even to most, the greatest filmmaker of all time. The man, the myth, the legend, nicknamed the Emperor himself, Akira Kurosawa. Born in the Omari district in Tokyo in 1910, you can say he was brought up by his educational, administrational father and mother pretty conservatively, coming from a samurai lineage which dates back almost 100 years. So he was raised to be really cultural, studying calligraphy and kendo swordsmanship pretty young. His family also looked at films as being educational, so by the time he was 6, he was already seeing the progression of film with silent pictures, which his older brother Heigo used to narrate at picture houses until the rise of talkies, where Heigo unfortunately lost work and eventually committed suicide. One very interesting detail is during the Great Kanto earthquake and massacre in 1923, Heigo took Akira to look at the burned corpses and ruins, and Akira was so obviously frightened by this, and he looked away. But then his brother Heigo said, No, you mustn't look away, because if you look away now, you'll always be scared. Which I think plays such a strong influence on the violence in Kurosawa's films, or rather, creative style of how to show violence on film. Kurosawa's love for film just exploded when he was young, watching so many of Eisenstein, Griffith, and majorly a lot of John Ford films, which would be a heavy influence in all of Kurosawa's shot style. With the progression of film, Kurosawa became very fascinated by painting and pursued a profession of painting, and it would always be an inspiration for his storyboards and gorgeous shots. But the call of being a director came in mind around the 1930s, where he worked as an assistant director for Toho Studios, then PCL, under the great Kajiro Yamamoto. And once the director was encouraged to make his own films, was the world absolutely blessed and changed with his works. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure I don't have to tell you, Akira Kurosawa is one of the greatest directors of cinema in the whole world. I remember first discovering him in high school, of course, where my mind was completely opened on how powerful Japanese cinema is. His films have changed the way stories were structured all over the world and how they were composed. Needless to say, my friends, to condense this master's works to just 10 really doesn't seem possible. But hey, if Watanabe says it is, if you put your mind to it, okay, I'll believe Watanabe. Even Kurosawa's most unpopular and experimental films have something utterly magical about them. But what do I always say? Yep, you know it. What I love so much about every one of his films is the continuous theme of individuality. With the blossoming of Kurosawa's work during post-war Japan, ideals were definitely drifting. Self-identity was something very scarce and really sought after. With the uprising of kidnapping, gangs, drugs, etc., it's practically universal, these themes. Men and women are constantly battling with their true selves, looking for the shining light of freedom. It's expressed in every one of his films compassionately and even violently. That's why it's so compelling to watch an individual break out of the code, so to speak, of the samurai, or of the Yakuza, or even a farm village, because Kurosawa gives so much love and compassion to every character in those situations that we as the audience always connect with them. Every film is not just a film. It is an experience, and I envy anyone who gets the chance to see a Kurosawa film in theaters, as that is the real way to be impacted by the man's passion and love for films. Anyone who studies film or wants to become a filmmaker, or even if you just love film, they have to, by law, study Akira Kurosawa's work to understand the genius, the artistry, and the possibility of what any young filmmaker can do when they put their mind to the passion and explore the power of human connection. So let us begin, my friends, as we talk about the top 10 best films, the best masterworks by one of the greatest inspirational directors of all time, Akira Kurosawa. Starting off at number 10, we have Kurosawa's great blockbuster, The Hidden Fortress. Not sure if this is surprising for you Kurosawa fanatics, but like I said, Kurosawa has too many amazing films. But this one was the main inspiration for George Lucas to write this little-known film called Star Wars. Not sure if you heard of it, but there you go. Lucas has said it wasn't his main inspiration, but you just can't deny the subtle similarities and complements from Star Wars and this amazing film, where we follow C-3PO and R2-D2, Tahi and Madashichi, two peasants who are always getting in trouble during the wild and feudal civil war period in 16th century Japan. They manage to escape the clutches of the Yamana clan to find the Akazuki kingdom to work as soldiers, but find it in ruins because of the wars. They camp out nearby and come across some gold. There must be some gold hidden nearby. Then they come across a mysterious dude named Rakurosa, played by longtime collaborator and epic movie star of Japan, Toshiro Mifune. At first we feel Rakurosa is such a dick to these poor guys, even though they're not perfect either, my god, bossing them around. But then we come to find out Rakurosa is a general for Princess Princess Yuki, who is also hiding out in this hidden fortress. The peasants agree to escort the princess, who doesn't reveal herself as the princess to the peasants, with the general to Allied territory, and must do everything they can to escape the stormtroopers. Yamana clan. I really, really like this film. It is a pure example of what an action-adventure, yet poignant drama should be, with such great comedy as well. Compliments from Minoru Shiaki and Kamatari Fujiwara as the peasants. This was the first film for Kurosawa using widescreen, which was named Toho Scope, a combination of the production studio, Toho, who produced a lot of Kurosawa's films, and CinemaScope, the new wave in picture quality, the widescreen format. And it's tough to imagine Kurosawa without Toho Scope, ever, being that his films are always so epic, capturing every piece of action in the frame, like the lightsaber fight, spear fight between Mifune and Fujita, who is so great. The prisoner revolt in the beginning, and the grand finale leading up to the peasants finally recognizing the princess are all just magically wonderful. Kurosawa made a goal with this film to, quote, make a 100% entertainment film, full of thrills and fun. And by God, did he accomplish that. Number 9, The Bad Sleep Well. Now, this might be surprising to some, but I dare say this is quite an underrated entry from Kurosawa that I wish to God it was much higher. But here we have Kurosawa doing his own adaptation and take on Shakespeare's Hamlet, which I absolutely love. Compositionally, the film is structured beautifully, of course, just from the opening title sequence with Masaru Sato's jungle-like score, symbolizing the corporate world as such a rough jungle. The corporation in question is Public Development Corporation, with the VP, Ibuki, giving his daughter away to his secretary, Nishi, played amazingly again by the man, Toshiro Mifune. If you're a Hamlet fan like I am, you will see all the great similarities, like the opening scene. My God, it is one of the best, as we see the funny commentary from the press, leading up to the wedding cake, revealing the guilt of a man falling out of the window, which that man was Mifune's father, and he was his illegitimate son. Thus, he plans a whole agenda to make the VP and the corporation practically burn in hell. The wedding ceremony, which is obviously the play within the play in Hamlet, was actually a big inspiration to Francis Ford Coppola's staging of the opening scene in his little-known film called The Godfather. Not sure if you know that one either. And Coppola himself cites this film as one of his favorites. It's so damn easy to see why, because in the vein of Hamlet, we see Mifune burning so much inside with these actions that it bears the question, is revenge really justified? And citing the great quote in the film, it's not easy hating evil. You have to stroke your own fury until you become evil yourself. It's moments like those that seals Kurosawa's power behind the camera, with not just action, with simple and soft drama. Not to mention the fan-frickin-tastic scene in the darkened office between Nishi and Shirai, with Moriyama witnessing, and only the flashlight providing a piece of light for this heavy interrogation. It's one of the best scenes in any of Kurosawa's films, and major bravo has to be given to the fact that this was Kurosawa's first film he produced under his own independent studio, Kurosawa Production Company. Though it is not my favorite Hamlet adaptation, it is one of the most captivating and deserves every piece of praise. Number 8, Redbeard. Once again, this deserves wholeheartedly to be much, much higher because of how powerful this film really is, guys. We have Dr. Yasumoto, played greatly by Yuzo Kayama, a young and arrogant doctor who arrives at the Kushikawa clinic for a small assistance. But the honorable doctor on site, or rather Redbeard, played by the great Mifune again, orders him to stay and be a solid presence on site. This obviously angers Yasumoto, and he tries his best to get kicked out. But over time, he starts to really understand the power and gift that he has as a doctor to truly help people with patience and kindness. I just absolutely love this film, and some say this is too much of a soap opera, some say it's too long with its 3-hour and 5-minute runtime, but honest to God, folks, every scene does not feel misplaced. This is a dearly moving piece examining the lives of the patients at the clinic, and it beautifully concludes every character's arc in a way you don't see too often, even in Kurosawa's films. It almost feels like a perfect precursor to TV miniseries with its exploration on all these wonderful characters. It makes sense since it's based on a collection of short stories by Shugoro Yamamoto, with a little influence by Dostoevsky's Humiliated and Insulted. Kurosawa really went all out with this film, with the production design being so damn accurate to a T, with literally gathering aged wood, tiles, and materials of the early 19th century Japan to give it that authenticity, even if it wasn't featured on film that much. The film is famously known as the last collaboration between Kurosawa and Mifune after making 16 films together up to this point of 1965. It's never fully explained in any of their autobiographies, but it's speculated that Mifune turned down many other roles in order to keep his role as Redbeard, as production for this film was reaching 2 years. And needless to say, Mifune was probably done with the in-depth projects he and Kurosawa would do together and wanted to focus on money-making projects. As an actor myself, I can totally understand Mifune's mindset for sure, but I will say, their last collab is one of their absolute greatest. Everything about this film is visually and emotionally moving, from the great ensemble performances, amazing sound design, Sato's gorgeous score, which is one of the best, and most of all, Kurosawa's sensitive eye on every scene, which always flows naturally and organically. It's such a mature and vulnerable piece that will bring any viewer to tears, as it does for me. If there is an underrated Kurosawa film, it is without a doubt this masterpiece right here. Number 7, Throne of Blood. Jesus, how I wish this was much higher. And here we go again with another Shakespearean adaptation, and this time, Macbeth, which was technically the first adaptation of Shakespeare Kurosawa ever did. Surely, you all must know the story of Macbeth, so we don't need to really go into that, do we? But Toshiro Mifune, of course, takes on the role of Washizu, the brave and honorable yet emotionally hypnotized general who was swayed by his lovely dear wife, Lady Asagi, played amazingly by Isizu Yamada, to complete the prophecy of Ushizue becoming the great lord of the Spiderweb's castle. In Japan, the title is actually Kumonosujo, which means Castle of the Spiderweb. And so far, within Kurosawa's filmography up to this point of 1957, this film embraces the magic of no theater, the classic Japanese theater form like no other, which Kurosawa absolutely loved. From the mask work, makeup design, the score, and the performances. And the icing on the cake is the mist, the fog, and surprisingly enough, not enough rain, which is a frequent color to Kurosawa's films. Initially, Kurosawa was just going to produce this film for Toho, but Toho wanted Kurosawa to direct because of his past successes, and lo and behold, he would attack this adaptation with such fierce commitment and a beautiful devotion to the story. Hands down, the final scene with all those arrows flying at Mifune is jaw-droppingly mesmerizing, with the arrows being real. Yeah, the genuine fear that's on Mifune's face made me tense up like crazy, yeah. God, I remember first seeing this film in college as a young theater student, and once again, it blows my mind to pieces. To this day, it remains my favorite film adaptation of Macbeth, and quite honestly, and to many, many artists in theater and film, it is the best adaptation. Number 6, Yojimbo. Damn, man, how I wish this was even much, much higher. When we think of Kurosawa, most usually think of poetic justice, deep layers of family drama, heartwarming and beautiful literary narratives. But here with Yojimbo, you get a badass action hero movie. You get pieces of the former for sure, but from start to finish, you have one of the most entertaining rogue samurai films ever, which honestly is the film of that subgenre. Set in 19th century Japan, Toshiro Mifune returns again, but this time as Sanjuro, which is obviously made up. And he's a wandering ronin who walks into this rural town where two clans are rivaling, and he decides to have some fun and use this to his advantage. I'll get paid for killing people. And this town is full of people who deserve to die. The Puppet Master game Sanjuro plays is just so fantastically entertaining and wild. And Mifune gives one of his absolute best performances, which awarded him the Best Actor award at the Venice Film Festival of the year 1961, and deservedly so. It is 100% clear to see how Yojimbo inspired the whole spaghetti western movement in the 60s, with the clear example being A Fistful of Dollars, and then later on Walter Hill's less superior Last Man Standing, starring Bruce Willis. Kurosawa has stated it was based on Dashiell Hammett's novel, Red Harvest, but also The Glass Key, and there's more similarities indeed to Red Harvest, with how Sanjuro only cares for himself at first, but as his actions progress of conning his way for more money, which results in townspeople getting hurt, his true heart and conscience is revealed, which is such an endearing quality of the man with no name. And the shift with Unosuke, the samurai with the gun, paints the great symbolism of westernization taking over and Japan's need to adapt to the brutal times. Everything about this film is just perfect. It's perfect. Performance, direction, its Academy Award nominated costume design, production design, screenplay, my God, but very importantly, Sato's amazing score, which I play on repeat all the time actually. The finale, the showdown, is one of the frickin' greatest endings I've ever seen in a film, especially with how Unosuke begs for his life and to hold his pistol one last time because he's nothing without it. Coward. A clear statement of what you are made of deep inside. To this day, fans of the genre, Japanese film, and just cinema in general, honor this film as it is, and I completely agree, a brilliant masterpiece. Number 5, Rashaman. This film was and still remains a gigantic game changer in the world of cinema. It is the classic story of telling a recounted event from multiple points of view. It is the event of the rape of a white veil-cloaked wife of a samurai and the murder of the samurai. It is bleakly set up by the great characters of the woodcutter, the priest, and a civilian as they take refuge in the gatehouse called Rashaman, which means dispute in English, but also broken down to citadel and gate, and also originates from an ancient gate in Kyoto. It's amazing. Through an hour and 28 minutes, we are blown away by the fast-paced, captivating action of characters recounting a horrible event, but told and filmed so beautifully. The handheld camera work through the forest is something innovative for Kurosawa at this time as well, and the dappled lighting through the trees to the sun is something so mesmerizing that haven't really been tackled before, and Kurosawa is often credited as being the innovator behind that. But Kurosawa immediately gave credit to the cinematographer Kazuo Miyagawa for that. Toshiro Mifune is wildly over the top as Tajumaru, but he is brilliant as the cat-like bandit who is accused of the rape, but motivated perhaps by someone else. The whole ensemble is absolutely brilliant, of course, and they all stayed with each other on location in Kyoto while filming, which became such a joyous filmmaking experience for everyone. It was such a hit, but not as huge as a hit as you think in box office numbers. But it won the first international award at the Venice Film Festival, nominated for 1 Academy Award for Best Art Direction, and also received the honorary Oscar for being the most outstanding film made outside of the United States. The first film of Japan to receive that honor ever. It is proclaimed by most that the Academy created the separate category of Best Foreign Language Film of the Year because of Rashaman. And even though 2 other international films came out the next 2 years that were honored, I can stand by that statement. It was later remade with Paul Newman and Lawrence Harvey in The Outrage, which is an okay film. And it was even produced as a play on Broadway. But you could never reshape and recapture the mythic brilliance that is Rashaman, an amazing masterpiece that's still in IMDb's top 250 as well. It's truly amazing. Number 4, Ikiru. So perfectly entitled, To Live in English. Regarded to this day as not only one of Kurosawa's ultimate best, but one of the greatest films of all time. Even IMDb listed at number 98 in their top 250. It is so iconic that it was even remade in the UK entitled Living with Academy Award nominee Bill Nighy, which is a nice remake, but it is not Ikiru. We follow the story of Kanji Watanabe, played brilliantly by Takashi Shimura in his greatest performance, a bureaucrat who's worked his same tedious job in development for 30 years. And the way Kurosawa sets up how ridiculous that job is so great. How nobody basically gets a damn thing done in that place. Watanabe finds out he has stomach cancer and only has a few months to live. And for the first time in his life, he wants to discover how to live. At first, he just parties it up. But he clearly sees no satisfaction in that, and he struggles so much with finding something meaningful in his life, or just drink himself to death. After meeting a young ex-coworker Toyo, he is hit with inspiration to build a playground. And then, I'd hate to spoil it, my friends, if you haven't seen it, but I have to. Watanabe dies halfway into this film. And it's the influence of his legacy, or maybe the lack of one, on his coworkers that we are left to experience. This is Kurosawa at his most compassionate, no doubt. Roger Ebert said it best that the older we get, the less we see Watanabe as a pathetic old man, and the more we see him as every one of us. It is such a brilliant composition of what people can accomplish, and to hopefully inspire before it's too late. I just love the ending too, which many think is quite pessimistic, but I see as quite harshly truthful and human, which I will not spoil for you. You have to see it and experience it for yourself. Apparently claimed to be Steven Spielberg's favorite film of Kurosawa's, this international treasure should continue to inspire not only filmmakers, but everyone, because everyone deserves to live their fullest life. And one more thing, I dare you not to weep during the iconic sequence of Watanabe on the swing with the fallen snow, caroling the beloved gondola song. It is probably my favorite sequence Kurosawa has ever filmed, and it gets me every time. Number 3, Ran. What a masterpiece. That truly rivals the top 2 spots, folks. Seriously. To this day, Akira Kurosawa's adaptation of King Lear here remains the greatest and most impactful adaptation in film, period. There is not a picture really like Ran ever, with the visual composition, the heightened performances from the whole ensemble, especially Miko Harada, who plays Taro's wife, which is the equivalent to Edmund in King Lear, the screenplay, the haunting score, and just the confident eye of Kurosawa that breathes such Shakespearean life to this piece, incorporating no theater again. Ran, which generally translates to chaos, of course, has our protagonist Hidatora, Lear, wanting to divide his kingdom in 3 for his sons. One of them is exiled for refusing and objecting, while the other 2 sons have conspirators for spouses since their families were conquered by Hidatora. And on top of that, civil wars against the kingdom are erupting, all the while the kingdom is cracking from within. Hence, chaos, which drives Hidatora to ultimate madness. This mesmerizing piece of art took Kurosawa 10 years to come to fruition, which is so hard to believe, isn't it? An epic storyteller of Kurosawa's stature having trouble getting financial backing for this picture, which he eventually did, and was the most expensive Japanese film to date, budgeted at $11 million. The relationship between Hidatora and the fool is so sweet and fun, and reminds us why the jester characters in Shakespeare are so important. The battle sequences are indescribably jaw-dropping. The sequence of the burning kingdom while Hidatora is walking towards us shakes you to the core, because that ain't no CGI, man. Kurosawa gave everything, absolutely everything to this picture, and has encountered even more challenges while making it, like his wife, Yoko, passing away during production, losing his eyesight, production delays, etc. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And Kurosawa turned in a visual stunner that would inspire generations to come. The film won only 1 Oscar for Best Costume Design out of its 4 nominations, which include Best Art Direction, Best Cinematography, and Best Director for Kurosawa. His only Academy Award nomination for directing. Still, within IMDb's top 250 at number 135, this masterpiece never ceases to amaze me and audiences alike. Number 2, High and Low. Oh my God. Once again, another masterpiece of crime drama that you never ever forget. Some of you may say this is rated way too high, but my dear friend, I disagree with you, mightily. Loosely based on the novel King's Ransom, here we have Toshiro Mifune playing Gondo, a wealthy businessman whose shoe business is running dry. But he gets a call one day from someone saying they kidnapped his son, so they need to pay the kidnappers a hefty ransom, around $3 million in today's American conversion, or they'll kill the child. So Gondo and his wife get everything ready to retrieve their son until their son comes home and the kidnappers actually abducted Gondo's chauffeur's son. The demand is still active though, so Gondo now is debating to pay the ransom for his chauffeur's son or follow through with an important buyout opportunity for his shoe business. If you have not seen High and Low, folks, that's as far as I'll get, because the story itself unfolds so intensely, so organically, we are locked into the drama. Kurosawa just poetically constructs a Shakespearean narrative where you see the mindset and actions of high society and then watching it web through the actions and mindset of quote-unquote low society. The original Japanese title of the film translates to Heaven and Hell, which is such a poetic statement of the film. It premiered in the US the same week of November 23, 1963, when President Kennedy was assassinated. So it didn't catch on that quickly, and Kurosawa gained so much backlash in Japan because of a rise in kidnappings at that time. Kurosawa stated he hoped the film would influence greater sentencing on kidnappings rather than more kidnappings themselves. Regardless, the camera construction is just genius, shot literally like a play, with majority of the first half taking place inside Gondo's living room, and the dark second chapter as we're creeping along the shadowy heroin-filled streets of lower Yokohama is so striking. You literally cannot take your eyes off the screen. I will slightly spoil one bit, and it's that haunting ending where Gondo and Shinjiro are sitting face to face in the jail, and Shinjiro reveals his hatred and envy of Gondo's life. And then later the outburst on Gondo, where the urban legend is the actor Tsutomu Yamasaki was electrocuted on that fence, but he actually only burned his hands when he spontaneously bursted in anguish because the lighting on the wire partition made it so hot. He only burned his hands, no big deal. To this day, the structure and groundbreaking visuals of High and Low have inspired so many crime dramas today, like Coppola's, Scorsese's, and certainly Bong Joon-ho with his Oscar-winning masterpiece, Parasite, which makes sense since Bong Joon-ho has claimed High and Low as his favorite Kurosawa film. Of all Kurosawa's crime dramas, this is the most highly effective, visually stunning, and brilliant masterpieces you will ever see. And now, here are some honorable mentions for you. Dersu Uzula, which is such an important film for Kurosawa. Next to Rashaman and Ran, this is the only other film of Kurosawa's that won an Oscar, and in this case, for Best Foreign Language Film for the Soviet Union. Due to the unfortunate critical and commercial disaster on Kurosawa's previous film, Dodeskaden, which in all honesty, guys, it is not that bad of a film, in my opinion. It was even nominated for Best Foreign Language Film of the Year of 1970, on top of the event of leaving production of the American studio-funded World War II epic Tora Tora Tora. Kurosawa suffered tragically from depression that he attempted to take his own life, slashing his wrists and throat multiple times, but miraculously survived. He debated on whether he would ever even make another film again. But then the Soviet studio, Mosfilm, approached him about a film maybe he'd want to make. Kurosawa had the adaptation of the Russian novel Dersu Uzula prepped since the 50s, but he was unsure how to adapt it for Japanese audiences. He never thought he'd be able to work with the Soviet Union. It's the autobiographical story of Dersu Uzula and Vladimir Arseniev, the Goldie, hunter, and Russian explorer who go on an expedition together as nature is being taken over by the growth of civilization. To this day, most critics and artists are divided on this film, and though it's not a masterpiece, in my humble opinion, it has such gorgeous shot sequences. I mean, come on, it's Kurosawa. Like the moon and the sun shot right there. Again, Star Wars, anybody? It's a valiant return to cinema for the master, personally, that I believe any Kurosawa fan should respect. Drunken Angel, one powerfully gripping film noir, one of the great few by Kurosawa really fueled by World War II and its aftermath. Here in post-war Japan, we have Matsunaga, played by Mifune, in the very first of their 16 collaborations together, a violent, drunken gangster suffering from tuberculosis who starts to develop a close and wildly interesting bond with his drunken angel of a doctor, played wonderfully as always by Takashi Shimura. Sure, it's not perfect, but for Kurosawa, it's a huge step in the narrative of the human condition, of the good and evil in all of us. And obviously, this film still stands as a huge staple on Japanese Yakuza films. If you have not seen Drunken Angel, I dare say, if you've seen many Kurosawa films previously, check this treasure out. Sanjuro, a fantastic companion and follow-up to Yojimbo, which, yes, we can definitely say is a sequel or even a prequel. with Mifune returning as the cunning Sanjuro, this time getting involved with the superintendent and Chamberlain clans, trying to help the lot of these quote-unquote idiots and doing his best to protect the Chamberlain without getting caught by the superintendent. I know we talk about the majority of Kurosawa's films being so dark and masterful, and this is certainly masterful, but it is also so damn funny. This is quite possibly the most genuinely hilarious film of Kurosawa's, which makes sense since Kurosawa basically built this as a satire. How could anyone forget the fantastic finale where Mifune and Nakadai stand off with each other? And Nakadai has revealed himself that he didn't know what exactly Mifune was going to do on his move with the katana. So there we stare at each other for seriously a good 20 seconds. And then slice! Full explosion of blood. So epic. Which, funny enough, was filled with chocolate syrup mixed with carbonate water. Chocolate syrup still works as blood. Right, Hitchcock? It became the highest grossing film in Japan that year of 1962, and it is still regarded to this day as one of the greatest Japanese films of all time. Stray Dog. Yes, man, I freaking love this film. Sure, we can be honest, it's not perfect, but if you know me and how much I love film noir, oh, I am in absolute heaven when I watch this sweaty classic, featuring Mifune again as a rookie detective who gets his Colt stolen on a crowded bus, and he shamefully asks for help from the superior detective Sato, played epically again by Shimura. Kurosawa actually developed the script as a novel first, and then he thought that would help transitioning it into a screenplay. But nah, it was obviously much more difficult. But he said it was still extremely helpful to know what to eliminate and what to progress within the story. As enjoyable as making this film was, Kurosawa admits he's not too proud of the film, since it's more of a technical promise rather than substance of story. But I respectfully disagree. I think there is certainly a lot that grips you with the training of a young and hungry cop, earning his stripes through the blazing hot slums. And yeah, the way Kurosawa incorporates style is very strong and captivating. Just like the shot where Mifune gets shot in the arm. He doesn't move, and it cuts to his hand bleeding out onto the ground. It's so great. The shots of the slums of Lower Tokyo are so grittily astounding, even though that was technically the iconic Ishiro Honda, who would go on to make all the great Godzilla films. But all in all, if you're a film noir fanatic, oh god, you will absolutely love this seedy, stylized sensation. Kagemusha. God, it was that close, making it into the top 10, folks, because I genuinely adore this film. The story is so great, featuring a petty thief who bears a striking resemblance to a powerful samurai warlord. He's then hired to impersonate the warlord, but ultimate fatal challenges arise when the warlord dies and the criminal has to lead the clan to battle during the late 16th century Japan. Based on the real-life daimyo, Shingen, Kurosawa did every piece of research to incorporate historical accuracy, especially with the immaculate Battle of Nagashino, where apparently Kurosawa used 5,000 extras and real samurai armor. This film, which took again almost 2 years to make, is so damn beautiful. I remember seeing it when I was in high school, again, and being just blown away by Kurosawa's explosion of color. That made me want to pick up a paintbrush and start painting my own creations. It's so hard to believe that even at the point of the late 70s, Kurosawa still had trouble getting financing from Toho Studios, the house that built Kurosawa and in retrospect helped save Toho. So that's when Francis Ford Coppola and George Lucas stepped in to finance it, which in turn was distributed by 20th Century Fox so it could get out to the public. Kurosawa even did ads with Suntory whiskey to get more money. Even though it ended up losing money, it still earned 2 Oscar nominations for Best Art Direction and Best Foreign Language Film of the Year of 1980. Not to mention the BAFTA Award for Kurosawa for Best Director. Kurosawa said, "It was quite a dress rehearsal for Ron, but its power and influence lives on to this day." Just like Kurosawa. Number 1, ladies and gentlemen, Seven Samurai. I just could not deny it, folks. The granddaddy of all samurai films in cinema. As hard as it was, honestly, because of all the masterpieces Kurosawa has made, Seven Samurai made its groundbreaking mark in the year of 1954 as one of the greatest films of all time. It's the amazingly simple story of a village constantly ravaged by bandits after the civil wars, and they are fed up. So they go to the wise old man, and he says, hire a samurai, 4 if you're lucky. So they find Shimada, once again played beautifully by Takashi Shimura, and he realizes that they need 7 samurai to protect the village. And the fun just builds and progresses from there as they all prepare the village not just to count on the samurai, but to learn to defend their village as well. This was the very first film of Kurosawa I have ever seen when I was in high school, and I don't think I'm the only one on that. Right when my horizon on cinema was traveling further and further, and I will never forget watching this film with my high school buddy. It was indeed a jaw-dropping cinematic experience, like watching any one of Kurosawa's films. But to see this story unfold is just captivating. As an acting perspective, the performances are just brilliant. When we talk about ensembles, these magnificent 7 actors catapult the drama to great new heights and remains a textbook lesson on acting, at least for me to this day. Toshiro Mifune, once again, Jesus Christ, attacks the screen as Kokuchio. His monologue about why he pities and yet idolizes the samurai is so ruthlessly brilliant. Seiji Miyaguchi, as the ultimate badass samurai Kuyuzo, is so damn cool, even though the actor wasn't skilled with the sword at all. Every samurai was based in historical accuracy that Kurosawa worked so hard researching with his writers. Even though the film is about collective action, this grand group of samurai and farmers, Kurosawa stays within his main powerful theme of individuality. Kurosawa committed so much to this film, so much, writing out a family tree for every one of the extras so that they can work on their character, building a whole village far from Toho Studios so they could be as free as they wanted, even though the film went way over budget. But that's Kurosawa for you. Total and utter passion and commitment. This would be the first time he would use the multicam setups so that he didn't have to obstruct the flow of the action happening. And that's the brilliant way to film this, so the actors and the choreography can be as natural and free as it should. Good God. The last hour of this film is just extraordinary. The whole entirety of the 3.5 hours is extraordinary, but when we get to the final battle sequences, it is a massive achievement in filmmaking that I have never seen before. Apparently, Kurosawa used 6 pump trucks of water for the brilliant muddy battle finale, which adds such great depth to it and also extremely freezing conditions. Not only is it a phenomenal action drama, but it is really, really hilarious. There are so many laugh out loud funny moments in this film that are just chef's kiss genius. By the very end of the picture, I won't spoil it if you haven't seen it, but we grow so attached to every one of them that the consequences of battle really punches you in the gut so hard that I genuinely weep every time. Even for anyone who has not been raised around Japanese lore and legends or samurai code of honor, we as humans still understand the mindset and the code, and we see these men not just as loyal warriors, but genuine human beings, which was such a groundbreaking viewpoint even for Japanese audiences at the time of the 50s. This classic earned only 2 Academy Award nominations, a crime, in my opinion, for Best Art Direction and Best Costume Design, but no Best Foreign Language Film of the Year. Everyone in the world today knows the power of Seven Samurai, even if they've never seen it before. Its influence is obvious when we see the American Western remake, which is also a masterpiece in remakes, The Magnificent Seven. Among its other entries, the fun TV series Samurai 7, and of course, Pixar's A Bug's Life. Yes, that is totally Seven Samurai. But we will never have another film like Seven Samurai. And I thank God for Akira Kurosawa for giving us such a heartfelt, gripping, exciting, action-packed, comical, groundbreaking masterpiece that stands the test of time. Have you all noticed how many times I've referred to Kurosawa's films as masterpieces? Which is the honest-to-God truth. When you examine his life as a whole, it is one of aspiration, hard work, triumph, compromise, and tragedy. But through all of it, he always kept the magic part of artistry that is so very important for all artists to keep. His last film, Madadayo, which I do love so much, is such a fitting finale for Kurosawa, since it is celebrating a great professor, Heiken Yoshida, who is a real person deciding to retire and begin a new life as a writer. It is very Capra-esque, which you know I love, and for being 83 years old while making that film, he still knows how to make a phenomenal picture. Kurosawa almost gives us a reflection as the teacher himself, giving us all of these amazing stories and then starting a new wave of filmmaking again. The man was still writing and had 2 scripts to get out too, which were later made after his death with After the Rain and The Sea is Watching, which are beautiful films. I always love how much of a committed artist he was, how patient he was with the process to achieve great, astounding work. He said, "If one neglects to hone one's skills in a rush to achieve results, everything will be in vain." And that's why all of his works are visual examples of what a young filmmaker can do. It's also amazing how the ending of Madadayo is the dream of the professor as a little boy, playing hide and seek, and the kids looking for him are screaming, "Ready yet?" And the boy shouts back, "Madadayo," which means, not yet. Are you finished making amazing masterpiece films, Mr. Kurosawa? Madadayo. Even though Mr. Kurosawa has been gone since 1998, his influence shines out in all mesmerizing works to this day. It is confirmed to say we would not have Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, Francis Ford Coppola, Martin Scorsese, Bong Joon-ho, Julie Taymor, or any of our other great filmmakers today if it hadn't been for Kurosawa's bravery and influence. It's still shocking he hadn't received any other major accolades, but Akira Kurosawa gracefully received his honorary Oscar for his contribution to film in 1990 by, of course, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. As Academy Award-nominated writer-director Federico Fellini has said of Kurosawa, he was the greatest living example of all what a creator of cinema should be. The end, my friends. Now tell me, do you agree with my picks? What are your favorite films by the Grand Master of Film, Akira Kurosawa? Please share in the comments below. It's very, very important. If you like this, please click like as many times as you want. Please subscribe, and I would love it if you could all check out the Patreon page. I'd love to get more content out for you guys, but it all takes so much time and money, so any love is genuinely appreciated. Until the next one, domo arigato for watching. See you around.